Are you looking to be a better deck builder? Or maybe you're looking to see how deck building works so that when you go and you look at a deck list, you kind of can quicker understand how decks function and use that tool to upgrade decks. If maybe you're a tweaker, a lot of people like to tweak decks. That is one way to do it. Anyway, guys, KTOD, Maddie here, hitting you with another SWU Academy video on deck building. I think deck building is an essential tool to being a better Star Wars Unlimited and TCG player. And I think even if you're the type of person who likes to take a deck and then upgrade it, I think it's good to see where the deck builder was kind of thinking, so that way you can appropriately upgrade it and kind of get a step ahead than looking at a list and kind of being, kind of looking at a list and being a little lost. So I'm going to talk to you about card density. I'm going to talk to you about things that I look at in a leader, and then I'm going to talk about when to swing for the fences and when to go for the value plays, all here in my YouTube channel. Check it out. All right, y'all, getting into deck building. The first type of deck building I'm going to talk about is leader-based deck building. This is when you're really just looking at the leader, the most important pivotal part of a Star Wars Unlimited deck in a lot of ways, and you're using that to guide your deck building. So things that I'm going to look at are obviously the aspects, the deploy cost, and then the difference between their leader cost or leader ability and their unit ability. Some leaders, you are going to really be honing in on their leader side. That would be, just off the top of my head, looking at this list, this would be like a Count Dooku. You're really looking to use that cheat of exploiting out separatist units to get insane value, get ahead on board, land some early fatties or just some great cheap value plays, hit them with a sick barrage, Booyaka Shah, and take over the game. But then there's also, and we'll scroll down a little bit, then there's like unit-based leaders. And some of those are leaders that you're really using for their body. It's good to have a friendship for a relationship in that terms, but sometimes you're just going to use somebody for their body. So that would be like a Chirrut, right? Chirrut is your all-in leader combo where you're really going ahead and you are just loading him up and just trying to take over the game. Kylo is kind of a hybrid, right? His ability is sweet, and you can definitely take advantage of that, but a lot of decks are getting good value out of his body. Boba leader is just kind of cracked, right? Obviously, so he's one that's a little more of a hybrid. But I would actually say like Sabine with the new dark saber list, like you're really on the color palette, but her body is very important in terms of like when you're putting a dark saber on her. So yeah, oh great, one more, sorry, is like Darth Vader. You ramp, you always have a bomb. That would be like another leader one. That's like probably a better example. I'd say Chirrut and Vader are super strong examples of that. And we're starting to see some more kind of come into play with like Anakin Skywalker, who's just dropped on Monday. He has a sick ability in letting all your guys trade up, but then you get to a point where he is going to take over the game. So we're kind of identifying that there's these hybrid leaders, and that's like an interesting perspective of like when your leader is actually good in terms of their front side, but also like not too shabby on their unit side. And so like when you're looking at a Venn diagram of these things, you have like Chirrut on one end, very linear deck style, ramping into like a what's his name? Vader also, would be like kind of more of this like linear style. And then like as you kind of move into the way, like, you have your leaders that have a good front end. And so then you're just balancing like, okay, man, I'm using their front end all the time. And what's the trade-off there? Is the trade-off that they're not a great body, or are they actually someone that you can build around in that regard too? So that's definitely a very interesting way to look at it. And so that'll also come into deploy costs. Like, you can do some crazy things with with Yoda. He would be, in my perspective, somebody that I'm using the front end more, like Dooku, where you're trying to stack the top of your deck, maybe do some combo-y things with You're My Only Hope. And then the trade-off there is he does take till 7 to deploy. So are we ramping to get to him? can we set up the game in a way that we can get there pretty easily? So that's like one of the big first considerations with leader. And so from there, I would say once you get that pairing in, the other one you can look at, and you can use either one as your starting point, but the second one what I'm about to talk about is card density. And I'll go to a different slide for this. All right, so card density, something I talk about a lot, and the easiest way to show it in one of my favorite examples is looking at like force traits. As we're getting set 3, this is going to change, but early on in the game, one of the best ways to stack up on force users, if you're going for Jedi lightsabers and you're the force is with me and stuff like that, would be blue-yellow. That has the highest density of force users. And let's just go through it real quick as we look. We have Grogu, we have Guardian of the Wills. It's kind of sick how good it's going to get now, where you don't necessarily have to go Ezra. You don't necessarily have to go this color palette if you don't want to, but we got Yoda, we got Kanan, we got Rey, and you're starting to see, I mean, a lot of them are blue, let's be real, but you got those early yellow ones that were a big deal in the beginning of the game, and I think we got some new ones, right? We get like a Plo. I would love to be able to find him if I knew the alphabet. Anyway, yeah, Plo Koon, isn't he a yellow boy? C L. Does he cost 6? I am not even gonna cut this. Editing Maddie, stay out of here. I don't know where he is. Anyway, I'm probably goofing. But anyway, so like that would be a card density thing. You got your Lukes, you got your Yodas. Blue is obviously a big one for that. But you get the early yellow drops that really help you out with the Ezra, with our little friend Grogu. So that would be like an example of card density with Jedi. I want to build a Jedi deck. All right, I'm gonna look at yellow and blue. I get a leader that comes out on 5. Using his front end to kind of fight for the board, flip, and then I'm going to load him up with a lightsaber and maybe hit them with forces with me, stuff like that. So it binds all things. So again, blue, big Jedi one, yellow, or a force user one, yellow shores up your early drops and gets you in a pretty good spot to build the deck around that. So that would be when you're looking at card density for like units like that, right? So when we're building, say, like an Imperial deck or a Mando deck, that's what you're looking at. You're trying to find what the biggest card density is for that archetype, or that trait, and then you're gonna use that as a starting point. So then we have this deck, and we're thinking, oh, okay, let me look at, and the website could very well be broken right now, to be quite honest with you. So that's your starting point, and then we could look at different leaders, right? We could go, this isn't moving, but it could be, we could go yellow base with Luke, we could go yellow base with Chirrut, and we could go blue, Ahsoka, or whatever, you know what I mean? So your starting point is finding where the card density lies, and then you're kind of coming out and saying, okay, what leader would actually be best for this? And you can mix and match a few and kind of find it from that angle. Another one I talk about a lot, which unfortunately, Deck Builder is cracked right now, and I need to get this video out, so we're going to keep rolling. Bad gateway. Ooh, boy. All right, so Deck Builder went down for a second, and then I figured it out. I wasn't on the new set of cards, so I was like totally missing some stuff from Twilight Republic. So I added in Plo Koon. That would be another reason why you'd be on yellow. Yeah, and there's other good stuff you could lean into, and yeah, it might. Oh, and you got Ahsoka's like three unit side. So again, that would be shoring up your lower drop. So that might be where you want to be. And then you could say, does this need to be a Quinlan deck, or should it be an Ahsoka deck and use her sweet lightsaber, which is dope. So again, that's card density. I know we're backtracking a little bit because of the edit. But that is card density, looking at force trait and trying to exploit something there. That would be your frame of reference. That would be where you begin when when building. Oh, she's yellow. She's red actually. So you couldn't do this blue thing. So you'd probably still be on Quinlan, who seems pretty good actually. But then there's another one, right? There's like, if you want to make a control deck and you want to go super late game, what is the most removal? You want to be an Imperial deck, what colors have those, or Mandos or whatever. So that would be where you start, and then you go and you zoom out and you pick a pairing with the bases and all that. What base would facilitate the strategy the most, and you try different things out. And that's another great point to bring up. Is like, this is all early, especially early set. This is trial and error. This is having 30 to 40 cards in your sideboard that you're testing and swapping in, swapping out. You know what I mean? Early, when I was trying out the Mandalorian leader, was it, hey, do I want to upgrade my guys and tap their guys and race? Or do I want to play more of a control and I want to play bounties and put bounties on their guys? And I kind of found a good middle ground there. And it's a good frame of reference for when I go back to it every set when there's more upgrades and say, can I finally break Mando? I've already got kind of, the pieces of the puzzle starting to come together. All right, so with these principles in mind of card density and, a leader that you can build off of, their front text or even their back text, and kind of using that Venn diagram of where we want to be, we're going to build a Count Dooku deck. I think he's obviously going to be very strong. A lot of people are going to want to put their stamp on him for a good reason, and I think he's a leader that has an unbelievable front end, and because of the value you're going to get, I think you can actually buy time to get him out there, at which point he's going to be like a finisher for you. So I've set my tag to Twilight Republic because the highest density of Separatist cards are going to be in the new set, because it's it's the set that is kind of debuting most of the Separatist stuff, other than like the one-off like Dooku unit from before. So card density is in this new set. We're doing that, and for me, it is in blue because I want to be able to use his leader unit from set 1. I think is really good, especially earlier out, but there could be a red one with his other unit that seems kind of cracked. So hit me in the comments with your take on the best red version, or if you have differences from this, I'd love to hear them. So I wish we could like go out and look through, just type in Separatist. It doesn't really work that way in here, but what I'm going to do is kind of go down the list of some things that I see right away that are drawing my attention, and we've actually accidentally landed on one, which was Poggle. I think he is an insane enabler for exploit because he's building more guys. You're going to replace things. That's kind of cracked, in my opinion. And then we also landed on Rune, who's just an incredible value 2-drop because not only is he good stat line, he's a Separatist, so you could actually exploit him for free and then finish someone off with the -1/-1. Also lends to some decent trading. But as we look at this list, let's go down. Let's look at the fun stuff that we might want to try. The Invasion of Christophilus, that is a Separatist card. We might want to try that. We'll put in one. It's very expensive. Gore, another finisher. Separatist, pretty fun. Malevolence kind of seems crazy. Big ship, can't come out quick. Restore is always good in a gunfight where you're trying to heal back some of the damage dealt. So we're going to definitely want to run 2 or 3 of those. And so we're going to start to pull some stuff that we like. I think the Invisible Hand could be fun. I'm a little weary of things that come into play and don't do something. Like, because of the high cost of exploit, like at least Malevolence has some kind of come into play ability. Whereas, the Battle Droid Legion is a big unit, but if we're not able to do anything with it, or same with the Hellfire tank, so you're gonna have to figure out a good balance. So for me, I'm kind of steering away from some of the stuff that doesn't have a come into play effect. Admiral Trench could be really insane to rebuy after, a big skirmish or a wrath kind of effect. So we would want to look at him as sideboard option or a one-off, because you can't get tokens back. So this seems like it's going to be a bit of a token deck. when played, create 2 battle droid tokens. We like to see that as something we're going to exploit, and I think the fact that you could go very wide with this deck. The Kraken seems kind of crazy. I was looking at Kalani, but I think like the Kraken is just kind of the better thing here. Going down the line, I think that this card could be really good in ambushing ship that's going to cost cheap. And if you have initiative, make something. So I kind of like that. We might toy around with that one. Not a Separatist. See you later. I actually kind of like the General's Guardian. Again, he doesn't do anything when he hits play, but you can make him come out cheap. He's got a decent body, especially for 2 resources, and he creates something when he's attacked. So, he kind of replaces himself. So I'm going to put that in there as like, yeah, maybe we're going to use this guy. I like the 4/3. I think the fact that you can play it for 1 is kind of cool. And so we're going to figure out numbers in a second, but we're just kind of identifying things that we want to be doing with this deck. Again, we might be going wide. We might be pairing with the Kraken. So like the idea that you can attack with the Kraken and then, cheat this action out thing is really important to me. It's also a cheap 3/4. I love that. Grievous overstated 3-drop Separatist. We're going to go ahead and add him in numbers. Same with the Droid Commando. Seems kind of crazy. Ambushing a 4/3 for as little as 1 resource, and you're going to have a lot of things that like have when defeated come out. So I kind of like that, where he replaces and he gets the thing. The Mana Guard is a conditional Sentinel. Always good to have in your repertoire. I like the Battle Droid Escort. Again, when it comes to play, it does something. Defeated does something. We're making tokens, and we really want to be very efficient with our resources. We're going to be able to do a lot of things during our turn. I like Separatists, and I like Separatists that replace themselves. So I actually like the Wartime Trade Official. Not the sweetest body I've ever seen, but again, he can go out there and be exploited and then lend for himself to get replaced, which I very much like. I think Droid Deployment's good. I just don't know how many we're going to need. Bubble Card. I think we have enough stuff that's making droids, but we're going to just kind of keep that on the periphery. Again, another thing that replaces itself, and this one attacks for 2, which I kind of like. So I'm feeling that. And then there was an event that I liked a lot. I got to find it. I think it should be in here. It was the event that said they like when you lose a guy. Oh, here it is. Yes. Okay. So Prime Manufacturing. Here, I'm cutting it off a little bit. When you're doing this style of deck, you're going to be kind of spewing your hand out really fast. And so you need to be able to replace the cards in your hand, or you're just going to be off the top all game. And when you don't have ramp, potentially, you're going to put your... Although I think we're going to put Super Laser Tech in here because he's a good exploit target. But you're going to need card draw to refuel your hand and keep the hits coming. So we're going to play this card, Private Manufacturing, in 3s. And I was actually looking at playing Pershing in a deck like this because, again, like when you're ready to be done with him, he's easy to get rid of, but he's going to keep you drawing cards, which I like. Because a deck like this really wants to go balls to the wall and get rid of a lot of stuff. So here we are. We're at like 47 cards right off the rip. We have identified a very nice and tight, card density. We're starting to really lean into his leader unit. We have very few separatists. I think it's really just the... Yeah, it's really just the Pershing, which doesn't necessarily have to be in the deck. And so, as we start to look at this deck, another thing we're going to want to look at is like 2 things. One, like how would this play into like a meta that already exists, but also like what's the most powerful thing I can be doing? And so like I think the most powerful thing you could be doing is cheating out fatties. Oh, we need some events too, boys. Let's be real. You need to be cheating out fatties, which means like you're going to probably want to play Overwhelming Barrage. And then like as you build out your sideboard, you got to think like what are the cool things I could be doing? Well, I could be giving somebody a freaking unit, a little 1/1 while I'm like taking their big thing. So like we're going to start to build in lines. And so when I think of the most powerful thing I can be doing, dropping a fatty into a barrage, right? Or stealing somebody's high valued play with something that's relatively cheap. That's what I call like building lines into your deck. Another one that might not make the cut but is a pretty cool line is taking Vanguard infantry and then exploiting out something that can get the bonus. So like playing Vanguard infantry for 1, killing it, and then for 1, because 2, it'd get exploit, so General Grievous would cost 1. Having a 5/5 General Grievous on the first turn of the game, that's kind of crazy. That would be building in a line. Not the most reliable line, but there's other ways to, you could have some pretty beefy guys right off the rip. Some of these 3-cost guys are not bad bodies, right? So building in lines is something that we're going to talk about. And because of the nature of this line, I'm probably going to go ahead and like put that in the bubble. I'm going to try it some games, kind of take it out. And so we're not really worried about making a cohesive deck yet. What we're really trying to do is create like this list of like 60 or 45 to 60 cards that we're going to start slotting in, like Cobb Vanth. Like if you wanted to say play some Emperor Royal Guard game with officials, Cobb Vanth could be somebody that would exploit well and then bring out someone pretty reasonable to replace him, right? So these guys, because of they're not separatists, and that would dilute our separatist pool, we're going to file those away under bubble cards. And bubble cards are really important because as you play the game and as the meta develops, you're going to need to find answers for different things in the meta. Oh, there's a new aggro deck emerging. I need some more sentinels here. Like, we have this conditional one up here, but maybe I need some more help there. So like maybe I'm going to kind of try to run Emperor's Royal Guard with some of the officials that I have put into my deck. So that's like one way to look at it is being reactive to the meta around you. So, bubble cards I'm going to put in are some of your removal, right? Okay, we probably need some amount of fells. Put vigilance down there. Are we going to need this for, the future when things get a little bit hairy? Are there priority 5 drops we're going to need? Things like that. And so, do we want to be more of a control deck, or are we okay not doing that? But you're going to have all these cards here because like until you start playing competitive events, which again, like you're going to be going to locals for a little bit, isn't going to come around. So having a big sideboard like that when you're testing these decks out is such a great idea. Yeah, I think this gives us a pretty good opportunity. You could also, if you went the official route, right, and you're exploiting things out that are, this one has ambush, but you could actually go ahead and play one of my fun favorite cards is Admiral Piet. Like, oh, do we want to be cheating things out and then giving them ambush? Let me keep that in my sideboard and then slot it in to try it. So just kind of going with this deck and kind of solidifying some of the numbers. Is Trench good? Somebody tell me in the comments. Do you like Trench? I think he's pretty cool, especially with some of these guys that replace themselves. And we're early in the set, so I don't think we need that. I like to have removal. I like to be a little agile here. We're 55 cards. Maybe we don't need this guy. No, I think he's cool, and he's a droid. And we have this thing that works with our droids. So I like the hand. I like Malevolence because the hand, brings dudes in. And then like we can get really wide with our dudes and the hand can hit for 1 million. So I really like the hand here. Yeah, we're going to, I don't know. The Trench is a different, like probably need to play him because he's new and you want to be playing those cards, but just for the purpose of giving you guys a starting point to start with, I just want to give you something halfway decent as your frame of reference here. Yeah, I don't think we need too much removal. We're going to be leaning. Okay, so again, and this was all live. Like I didn't have this, ahead of time. There's probably things that I'm missing out on, but the whole point was to kind of go through my process and go through things that pop up in my head as I'm building a deck live. So I did the card density thing. I did that, and then like, are there ways to like take advantage of Dooku's leader spot? Well, that's where things like the invasion are going to come into play, or just a sick barrage. I don't think you have to get too cute with them. I think you're going to get pretty far ahead where people are just going to be worried about taking 5-10 damage from Dooku and just being dead. So we have token enablers, right? Boom, 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 which feels pretty good. And then we have like some really sick value plays in here, up here for top end. And then we have like, interaction, refueling, one of the best cards, if not the best card in the whole game, and a one-sided Wrath, which seems kind of cracked. So this is a good starting point. This is where I'll put a link in the description. But yeah, that's kind of me building a deck live, and then I'll just kind of summarize some things at the end here. All right, guys, so that was me live building a deck. There was no notes, no frame of reference there, so I really wanted to give you a raw look at me kind of just going over the cards, things that I'm thinking of, kind of keeping it pretty stream of conscience. So obviously there might be things I missed or some numbers that you guys could tweak, but that will give you a good frame of reference for starting an exploit deck with Dooku. And so just rehashing some things we talked about, taking advantage of either the leader side or the unit side of a leader, identifying where the highest density of cards are. I picked blue-green for my Separatist deck because I felt that with cards like Count Dooku Leader and General Grievous, Rune, and stuff like that was a good angle. However, and Malevolence, obviously. But there is probably a really good red-green one in there. So I'd invite you in the comments to kind of hit me up with some of your ideas for a different type of Dooku deck. From there, we talked about building in lines. Do you want to get balls to the wall and do that Vanguard, into General Grievous line, or are you looking for more of like, a value play and sitting back and having some removal to interact with your opponent? We talked about building a bigger sideboard to give yourself a frame of reference for all these bubble cards that are going to be in your deck and on the periphery of your deck. One of the things that we do in this game is we adapt to the meta. And so you're going to be having specific tech cards in your sideboard, but there's going to be cards that are always kind of around, and you need to know when they're good and when to deploy them. We're working on some pretty sweet tech right now for the upcoming PQ season, and it's a card we have not played with like at all in set 2. And it's just really interesting. Like, you need to do the work early so you know when you can pull these things out late. So I invite you to play with a big sideboard. I invite you to try a lot of different things, because losing in a practice game is only going to lead to more learning. So you should not be afraid of winning your practice games. You should be afraid of not learning. So that is going to be it for me on my deck building process, things I look at. And I think I gave you like a pretty cool starting point for a Separatist exploit deck. And I can't wait to see what you guys bring to it. And as we watch spoiler season, I can't wait to see what other cool things we could add to it. So yeah, hope you enjoyed.